Okay, so maybe you're thinking about picking up this book, The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. We've got a pretty big stack of sources here, reviews, articles, all that stuff. And I'm seeing some mixed reactions, to be honest with you. Some people are saying this thing like changed their life, and then others are saying it's just kind of common sense stuff.
Right.
So before you spend your money on it, let's take a look and see if it's really worth it.
Right. So the main idea is actually really simple. You just count down from 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you use that momentum to get yourself to do something. Robbins says this can help you stop hesitating so you can reach your goals, whether it's like finally getting to the gym or working on a big project or even just like speaking up during a meeting.
I gotta say, I'm a little skeptical. Counting down from 5 sounds a little too easy to be something that could like change your life.
Yeah.
So is there any like real science behind this, or is it just hype?
Well, that's what Robbins tries to do differently. She connects this countdown thing to something called activation energy, which is like the initial effort you need to start any task. The book gets into the neuroscience a bit. It explains how our brains don't really like change and how that first step is the hardest.
Okay, I think I'm getting it now.
Yeah.
So is she saying this countdown like tricks your brain into not resisting?
Yeah, basically, think of it as like a mental hack. So instead of getting stuck overthinking and doubting yourself, you just like force yourself to do something before your brain can stop you.
So it's less about the numbers and more about getting yourself moving.
Exactly. And the book is full of examples of how this works. Like, Robbins used this technique herself to stop hitting the snooze button. She realized that if she thought about it for even a second, she would hit snooze and like waste her morning. But by counting down and immediately getting out of bed, she like skipped that mental struggle and created a new positive habit.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm definitely guilty of hitting the snooze button a few times. But are there any examples of this working for like bigger challenges?
Oh yeah, for sure. One reviewer who had been dealing with depression said they used the 5-second rule to start exercising. They said the countdown helped them push past those negative thoughts and actually get out the door. They actually ended up training for a marathon, which is pretty amazing.
Wow, that's really impressive. But some of the reviews we have here are saying the book is kind of repetitive and even like a little thin on content. Is there really enough to talk about to make a whole book out of this?
That's a fair point. Some people felt like the book could have been shorter, since the main idea is pretty simple. But here's the thing. Robbins says the real power comes from seeing how this one simple thing can help you in like tons of different situations. The book has a lot of these real life stories, and while some people might find them repetitive, other people might actually find them really helpful.
Okay, so like seeing how it worked for someone else could motivate you. Like if they can do it, maybe I can too.
Exactly. For example, one reviewer said they used the 5-second rule to stop thinking negative thoughts over and over again. They would catch themselves dwelling on something bad, and right away they would start counting down to break that cycle. It helped them focus on something better.
Interesting. So it's almost like you're teaching your brain to react in a different way.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And this brings us to you, the listener. Think about your own life. What are some of those things you keep putting off or those goals you just can't seem to start? Maybe it's finally launching that side business or having a difficult conversation, or even something as simple as waking up earlier. Could this 5-second rule be what you need to get over that initial hurdle?
It's definitely tempting to try it out. But I have to ask, how does this compare to other self-help books? We've talked about books like Atomic Habits on this show, which are about creating systems to make lasting changes. Isn't that a better way to go about it?
That's a great question. Atomic Habits is about those small things you do consistently that add up over time, right? The 5-second rule is more like a tool, something you can use when you need a boost of willpower right now.
So it's like a quick fix for when you feel stuck.
Exactly. It can help you overcome that resistance and get going. Think of it as something that can work with a book like Atomic Habits. You can use the 5-second rule to get yourself moving, and then the systems you built with those atomic habits can help you stay on track for the long haul.
Okay, I can see how they could work together.
Wow.
But I'm also curious about like the science behind all of this. Some reviewers mentioned the book doesn't really go into detail about that. Does it actually support what it's saying?
Robbins does talk about some scientific stuff, like the prefrontal cortex and how our brains are wired to stick with what's familiar. But she doesn't get too deep into the research.
So it's more about putting things into practice than like hard science.
Yeah, she's focused on giving you something easy to use that you can try right away. You won't find a really detailed explanation about the brain, but you'll get a good understanding of how and why the 5-second rule works, at least according to Robbins.
Okay, so let's get to the point. Is this book actually worth reading?
Well, it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a book that's full of research about how behavior changes, then probably not. But if you want a practical and easy to understand tool that you can start using right now to stop procrastinating and feel more confident, then the 5-second rule might be worth it.
So it's more about taking action than just learning stuff.
Exactly. It's about giving yourself a simple but effective way to fight against those annoying bad habits.
I like that. So final verdict time. Should our listeners go buy this book?
I wouldn't say you have to run out and buy it. But if you're interested in the idea and want to learn more, then reading the book or even just listening to Robbins' TED Talk could be a good start. But if you're not sure about it or you prefer a more scientific approach, then this might not be for you. In the end, the best way to know if it works is to try the 5-second rule yourself and see what happens. It's a low-risk experiment that could really improve your life. What do you think?
You know what? I think I'm going to give it a try. What's the worst that could happen? Maybe I'll finally clean out my closet.
That's the spirit. And hey, maybe you'll even be featured in Robin's next book as one of her success stories.
Uh-huh. Well, our listeners will have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But speaking of success stories, I'm curious to hear what you think about this whole, believing in yourself part of it. So much self-help stuff is about mindset, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And that's where things get really interesting with this 5-second rule. It's not just about making your brain do something. It's about what that action tells you about yourself. Like every time you use that countdown and actually do the thing, you're proving to yourself that you can take control.
So it's like building confidence by doing things instead of waiting to feel confident before you do anything.
Exactly. It's like showing yourself that you're not stuck with your own procrastination or fears, and changing your mindset like that can be really powerful.
You know, as we've been talking, I've been thinking about how this could be used for things other than just productivity. What about stuff like social anxiety or being afraid of public speaking? Could the 5-second rule help with those kinds of problems?
That's a great question, and Robbins actually talks about that in the book. She
Yeah.
says you can use the 5-second rule to get past those moments of self-doubt and fear that stop us from doing things in social situations.
So like if you're nervous about talking to someone at a networking event, you could use the countdown to just go for it.
Exactly. It's about stopping those negative thoughts and doing something before fear takes over. And the more you do it, the more confident you become.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this could really change things. But before we wrap up, is there anything else our listeners should know if they're thinking about trying this out?
I would say just have realistic expectations. The 5-second rule isn't some kind of magic. It's a tool. And like any tool you have to put in effort and use it consistently for it to work. You're not going to suddenly become super productive or get over all your fears overnight just by counting down from 5.
Right, it's not a quick fix. But it could be a good part of a bigger plan for self-improvement.
Absolutely. And even if it doesn't work for everything, the fact that you're trying to push yourself out of your comfort zone is a good thing.
Well said. So it looks like the 5-second rule has some good and bad points. It might not be the most groundbreaking or scientific book, but it does give you a simple tool that could help you stop procrastinating and build confidence. Whether it's worth your time depends on what you need and what you like.
I totally agree. And the best way to know if it works for you is to try it out. Next time you're hesitating, try counting down from 5 and see what happens. You might be surprised by the results.
I like that challenge. It's a simple experiment that anyone can do. So to our listeners, we encourage you to give it a shot. Who knows? Maybe a simple countdown could be what you need to reach your full potential.
And even if it's not the answer, remember the most important thing is to keep learning, keep growing, and keep trying to be the best version of yourself.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the 5-second rule. We'll be back soon with another episode exploring a new and fascinating topic. Until then, keep exploring and stay curious.